which I hope is a little bit more than 16. I want to take you on a roller coaster ride. What's happening in the next 10 or, as Olga said, 20 years, or put in the context. So I will speed up so that you can see, hopefully, and I want to have a little bit of open discussion if you can follow me and see if you see similar things. If you don't mind, could you put the timer on 20? That would be great. Okay, so who heard of Singularity University? All right, there's always one or two or three. So Singularity University is founded by Ray Kurzweil, inventor and genius in AI, artificial intelligence, and Peter Diamandis, who invented the X Prize, and it's supported by Google and NASA. It's actually on the NASA campus in Mountain View. And they're all looking at ways where exponential growth, or basically Moore's law, for basically a similar kind of whatever happens every 18 months, speed of chips is kind of doubling, and the price of most hardware things is cut in half. And so that's what we call exponential growth. And so Ray Kurzweil came up a couple of years ago, 20 years ago, I think, and tried to plot on an exponential graph to see, okay, how is the speed of processing power from the very early beginnings. I don't know, the big one starts here at 1900 to where we are right now. And so some people say, well, Moore's law might be over soon, but you will see some ideas where this might go next. So with the speed of chips, what you could also argue or say, what Singularity University is saying, well, at one point, the computing power, what we have right now in our smartphones, for example, is similar to the computing power of the brain of an insect. And pretty soon, 2009, we are basically entering something where it becomes the size of a mouse, or the computing power of the mouse. And at one point in the future, which might be 2045, the computing power in our pockets or in our phones will be the similar speed and ability as our brains, human brains. And another 10 years later, we will have all computing power of 7 billion brains on our phones. So that means exponential growth. And I give you a couple of examples how crazy the next 10 years will be. And I hope, most of you will live to do this, but most of you will also be in charge and drive this innovation and build products, build services, which can take advantage of what's coming. So next time I'll move the sofas myself. But so the remote control to our lives. I think if we start with mobile, you heard for the whole day how great the mobile industry is moving, how great the mobile industry is driving everything in our lives. So we call it lifestyle of mobility. Everything is touched by the mobile phone. Every industry, every aspect of our daily lives, from 9 o'clock in the morning until we sleep or go to party. So what are some of the examples? I think brands are now especially in a position where mobile is getting not only into mobile advertising or apps, but really into products. So this, for example, is a new electronic scooter, which a smart division of Daimler-Benz was introducing at an auto show in November about 2 years ago. The bike is already available in the market. The scooter is still coming, maybe this year, maybe next year. And by the way, it charges your phone, obviously, which is the first thing if you are in a car or somewhere, you need always to charge your thing. So I think that is something which is sort of a paradigm shift, where the role of big companies, whether you're a bank, whether you're a car company, whether you're an insurance company, or your clients are in this industry, everybody has to think, what can the phone or the chip or the Internet of Things do to my product? And this is like one example. Everybody's familiar with the Google self-driving car, but the German car industry is also very active. Audi drove up a racetrack very famously with their self-driving car. Mercedes is coming in their S-Class by the end of this year with something which is getting into this direction. And there's, I think the self-driving car from Google already drove more than 1 million miles without hitting anybody. So, and they're legal already in California and Nevada for testing. And so you can drive it on the street, and that will be a whole new way how we will drive with cars, and changes a lot of industry. You're familiar with Car2Go and with the sharing apps and so on, and that will lead into this. So fashion is influenced by this. You have t-shirts. This, for example, a project from a brand called Valentine's. T-shirt OS was a design couple out of London, and they designed a T-shirt where you can tweet on the display, and it can show you a message or pictures or something like that. Obviously, you're familiar with these fuel bands and every other wearable display. Next, obviously, is something which you're familiar with. It's a famous exit from Nest to Google, 3-point-something billion. And in this, I mean, we heard about the heating control, air conditioning control, and this is the fire alarm sensor. In that box are already a couple of chips and sensors. Nobody knows what it's doing, so it's has nothing to do with fire alarm. So there's a little bit of Big Brother in there, but maybe it has something to do which helps us in our daily lives. But obviously that's the interest of Google to come to, not only they are in our pocket, they are also now above us, and it's a little bit scary, but has the red light always kind of looking at you. This year, as a little bit of a hint to Kei, who is speaking a little bit later from Dentsu, is something out of the lab in Dentsu in Japan. So this is a brain control interface which takes your mood and actually plays the soundtrack from iTunes or from your favorite music provider, SoundCloud, Spotify, everybody in the house, according to your mood. So if you feel down, you might get an upbeat music. If you feel relaxed, you might get, I don't know, easy listening or something like that. So this is sort of takes your brain and as a sensor and has some impact of that. And so that's what I also understand under lifestyle of mobility. This is a Myo. It's a hand, it's basically a control which measures the sound in your muscles. And let's say if you are jogging, for example, and you have your phone on the arm, normally you would say, oh, I don't like that song, let me skip it, and you kind of fumble around here. Now you can say play, forward, stop, just with your hands, and Myo will take the sound and transfer it into something which you mean. You can kind of check it out as a video. They just kind of run around. There's a drone following, saying like, having a dog is 1919, I don't know, something, and having now a flying drone as a bird is maybe the next wave. So obviously useful for different kinds of things where you want to have free arms, but you still have control in your fingers. You are familiar with sensors. What are we doing now with health, for example? This is very interesting because you can save health information at a specific time of the day, maybe at a specific location on the map. You can see what kind of, let's say, allergies are maybe interesting. So there's something you could go after and say, oh, maybe there's pollution coming out of a certain factory just at 12 at noon, and when the kids go home, they have to use this allergic thing or asthma device. So that is, I think, something which is very healthy as well, especially also for kids. So I think we are at a very interesting time, and we are a certain shift. I think we are getting into, I call this third wave of mobile. The first beginning was, if you're on deck, you're good. If you're not on deck, you're dead, right? That is when you had to make a deal with an operator. If you were with Telecom or Vodafone or Megaphone or all these kind of operators, that was the old thing. Now we are in the app economy, and I already think the app economy is tipping. I think we already seen that app economy is over, if you can say, but it's very tough to get into this market. Yes, of course, we will have another million apps, and somebody here is maybe the next Mark Zuckerberg, but we are in sort of a music business, like a hit business. If you're lucky, you can be the next WhatsApp. If you are, and that is, let's say if you compare it with the music business, you can be a hit wonder, or you are the next U2. And so you have a whole big catalog of songs, and you can fill big stadiums, so you reach your audience, you make money, it's all great. But there's also a lot of singer-songwriters who just play for love for 20 people in a room. And I think that's where we are, and hopefully you are on that side where one of you can be the next U2 or Bono or something like that. I think the next thing is sort of where we're entering this whole Internet of Things, so this lifestyle of mobility where brands and also device makers, hardware is getting more sexy, and it's maybe easier as a brand also to understand that, well, it's no longer just an app which you add to your business, it's really fundamental. And that obviously with the Internet of Things and sensors and devices, it's a much bigger market. Just for the market size, I mean, now we have 5 billion phones connected. We have 15 billion devices which are coming online 2015, something like that, and next year. So there's an explosion already where we go just from phones into other things, whether it's your toaster or your fridge or something like that. And that big one is sort of 1 trillion devices in 2050. which is estimated I think by Ericsson, and that one is I think by HP. So crazy numbers. So that means your street will talk to you, your key will open any kind of things, and you know all these things. And I want to take you on, let's say, what does this mean, and what is sort of some of these examples we already have in our labs. So Intel calls this the ghost of computing. What does it mean? Well, they say it's a little bit like the internet. Everything is around us. It's there. It's somebody's taking probably the temperature right now. Somebody's filming. Somebody is taking, I don't know, maybe the pressure of the carpet or something like that. And we have, especially in chips. So this, for example, the chips from ARM. IBM has a similar one. It's like less than a millimeter as a CPU. So the only thing they need is these big kind of pins to put it on the board, but actually the real CPU is just a millimeter. And that is just what we have today. So imagine what we have in 5 or 6 years from now, or 10 years from now. This is something where sensors, which are just also maybe on an Arduino board or so, are now getting, it looks like more like a Band-Aid. It can go underwater, it can make even battery out of your movement, so energy and these things. So this is M10 sensor, which can be connected to a lot of other things. If you look at this, there's some connection where maybe with the Moto X, which is always on and always listening. It can be very scary. And it gets kind of on your skin before it gets even under your skin in the next couple of years. This is something which the US Army is working on. So it's a nano drone, which is like, look at the size. It's like I don't know what the innovation is here. I guess you're even smaller, but there's maybe no photo yet. So obviously the race to having even smaller devices, self-autonomous flying drones is here. So this can maybe bring some kind of a virus in a good way or a bad way to cure malaria, of course, for good things as well. This is interesting. So the MIT Media Lab developed the first form of biocomputing. So inside of a E. coli bacteria, you can now have a transistor, meaning you can compute between 0 and 1, which is a computer, and out of this you can build the next form of computing. So so if you think that the transistors in the beginning, the silicon is no longer enough to build and follow Moore's law, well, now let's skip into biotechnology. So this is a very simple test where they can calculate, for example, in this kind of bacteria, whether calculate 1 plus 1, and if it's 2, that then give us green light or something like that. Crazy stuff, but it's in the labs already. This is a animation which IBM did on an atom, so atom-size movie, if you will, and they can kind of really go and say, okay, this atom is doing this and this is that, and you can use this also for storage, for computing, for any kind of thing. Who is familiar with graphene? Okay, graphene, similar thing, magic new material, which is just an atom layer, which could be. It's people place a lot of wonders. It's very crazy what this can do. I mean, you put a layer of an atom, just dust it on your smartphone, and then it will never break, and so on and so forth. So it's super hard to break. It has a magic, energy kind of functions and functionality. This is interesting. So at Harvard, they started to have an experiment where you can store 700 terabytes of data in 1 gram of DNA. So again, nanotechnology is coming. It's already in the labs, and that's something which is crazy. So if you see all this and what's happening, and then you say, maybe that's just not for me, this is bio stuff, and how do I sell tomorrow an app to my insurance company client? This is all great, but and I understand where you are, but this is happening now, and it's happening in the next 10 years, and it's happening to your kids, but it's also happening to you. So in the next 10 years, the computing power what we have in our iPhone will be the size of a blood cell, 1 blood cell. So you can drink, let's speak French or something like that. Whatever that computing power is, you can have a functionality so small that it will be around you, in you, and so on and so forth. And so what happens then, if that happens in the next 10 years, what happens in the 10 years after, before maybe 2045, we reach this state where computing power is really more intelligent than a human brain. So I try to put these things on a scale. So the first 10 years you see up here, well, we have Google Glass not even in the market, but we're already talking contact lenses, right? Whether it has a functionality like testing the insulin level for diabetes. Kay showed me yesterday in Japan, you already have a smartphone or a glass, a next version of glass which just looks like these normal glasses here. So just normal contact prescription lenses. So we have material innovation where the phone can be see-through, can be all of it on a glass. I showed you the, let's say, dimension from CPUs right now to blood cells, and then storage is maybe 20 years out when we use this. But in England, I think it was Oxford, there's already a music professor who stored a whole, new opera or musical, a long music piece inside DNA, and he will just leave it there because we don't have the technology right now to read it, but he can write it already. So it's going to be a kind of cultural interesting experiment when this is happening and you can read it. So if you see down here or on the in the corner, we have Watson, which is the biggest bet of IBM right now. They put $1 billion into this whole division. They sell their servers to Lenovo and so on, and they're going all into AI. And have you heard about Jeopardy, the show and the experiment with Watson? Okay, if you Google that, Watson and Jeopardy. So they put a computer, and a couple of years ago it was a big thing. IBM Deep Blue was the first computer who, famously won against Kasparov in chess. So now this is really natural language. So the computer was part of a TV show, which was a quiz. So I don't know. You basically use they set as I don't know what is the let's say Thames, and you have to answer with a question. And the question here, the right answer is a question: what is the river flowing in London, for example? And so it was so amazing. Basically, they crushed the competition, right? So the computer was so fast. Basically, I don't know. The points were maybe 70,000, and each of the national champions of Jeopardy, the people who kind of killed the competition over the last years, they were the best. They had maybe 2,000 and 3,000. So dramatic improvement. And now Watson will try to, or IBM will deploy this into health and other ways how to use this artificial intelligence. And if you see this, so in the next 10 years, Watson is about half the size of this room. So it's a huge computer complex of supercomputing. And so in the next 10 years, we will have Watson size computing power basically also in our pocket. It will be the size of our phone. So now if you follow what I said before, that means whatever this supercomputing power in the cloud, artificial intelligence, 10 years after, it will be also the size of a blood cell. 20 years, can you imagine? It sounds like so far ahead, but if you look back, we only have 8 years, we have the iPhone, well, since 8 years. So before that, there was there was phones, there was an industry, but now it's a $300 billion software industry for app development. Similar things will happen here. It's going to be crazy. That's what I mean with roller coaster. And not only computing power, but obviously sensors basically will be like powder or salt. So you can put it anywhere because it's cheap. It will be in your Kellogg's, it will be in your cereals, and it's already in all these devices with rings and all these wearable computing things in shoes, and it will go into fashion and so on and so forth. So now let me introduce iPhone 20. There's no more phone in a couple of years, right? We're going, if you follow what I said, we probably have contact lenses in the better quality what we have right now. Just think 5 or 6 years ahead. The microphone is maybe an implant in our nose. The BCI thing, which is this big thing from Dentsu, is maybe just a tattoo or somehow implanted. After LTE, which is just getting deployed around the world, there's IMTA is the next version, 5G, 10 gigabyte per second, 10 gigabyte per second. And that might be a hair extension. Well, that doesn't work really with me, but I will have a shorter version of that maybe. And whatever you still need as a CPU or so, you might have an earpiece or somewhere around your body, because even the body is electric. Ericsson showed something at Mobile World Congress where you just touch, let's say, a coffee cup or so, or some food, and it says directly, just from your touch and from magic, whatever happens, right? It says, oh, you're allergic to this coffee because it has milk and you should drink soy. And it says like beep beep on your phone and you're like, oh wow. So, and it's already here. It's just with paper and an RFID chip. And if you follow me, it will just be 10 cents, 1 cent, less than a cent in a couple of years. And so there's a huge opportunities for startups, for developers, for people who are engineers. So there's some of you in the room to really go after these things, but really not only think technology. I think that's what's happening right now, is that a lot of people just look at, oh, I can make this better, I can make this smaller, I can make this faster, cheaper, and so on and so forth. And I compare it always, if you follow the IT, and we're in mobile, a lot of you have been in digital and running agencies or being at the forefront of these IT revolution over the last couple of years. There's in a way a high-speed train coming towards you, whatever has happened next in this Moore's law. It's already crazy what we are doing. So if you take a step back and look a little bit further down at the road, at the world around you, and in the labs, there's like 5 other high-speed trains coming towards us. So there's nanotechnology, there's artificial intelligence, there's biotech, and there's robotics. So all of these things combined will have dramatic shift and changes in society. Who of you will have there will be less and less mechanical jobs. It will be much more IT-driven and idea and information society. And maybe half of the world will have no jobs at all because there's just no more work, because it's all about computing and robots doing this thing. I think we have to develop ideas for that, how we all stay in business, how we make good opportunities out of this, and how society and your pension plan works with this as well. In closing, this is my favorite quote from Steve Jobs. I think the technology is all great, and my idea is just to share what I see is happening and to kind of wake you up from your looking at your phones and being attached to it already. Half of the room is in burnout syndrome in about half a year. That's all great. And so technology is not enough, right? We have to marry technology with human rights, with culture, and only then that makes our heart sing, right? We're humans, we are cultural, we're educated people, and we want to stay that way and use technology in order to, progress as innovation and in our own species, if you will. And I think that's the job, especially young people in the room. You can really build something which has not been there, and all the opportunities are here. Cost is basically not an issue anymore, I think. And it seems really crazy, but if you look at it, I think every kind of idea you might have right now, you can build within the next 2 years, right? If you don't have the money, you go to a Kickstarter. If you don't have the greatest engineer, well, you call a friend in Russia because you have great engineers. If you need access to great marketing people, call a friend who is maybe already in the valley, and you can build a global company with 3 people and have your address and phone number in San Jose or Palo Alto. I have like one other slide, and this is sort of, I'm wondering where ideas come from. I have like 1 more minute. So a lot of the ideas we saw and what we're building, for example, 3D printing and so on, comes from Star Trek, right? A lot of people have been seeing the movie and say, oh wow, this 3D printer, now we have it. They're building the tricorder, so the famous instrument how to determine whether you're healthy or not, and there will be a $10 million award next year, a big competition from Peter Diamandis and the X Prize to see whether whatever device, check out Xanadu, which is a device from a fellow from Belgium, developed with the Singularity University, and basically you can hold it to your head and you can scan whether, is this just fever or is it already malaria? What should I do? Should I go to the doctor, or should I just stay and drink lots of fluids and lemon and so on? So there's a lot of things happening which were inspired by the movie, which was actually invented in 1966, 1969. And now, if we're looking at where other innovation, Alan Kay kind of invented the iPad in 1973. He said, oh, you know what, here's sort of Dynabook, that's what he called it. And there's kids, they play on the ground, they will program, information comes out of the air. And I heard him speak in 1988. There was no internet, there was no Wi-Fi, there was not even the possibility to make these small things so small. And you just have to have a couple of visionaries who kind of push until we have these things. So now I wonder, what kind of things are we following now with everything you know? What are the stories, what are the movies, what are the books
we're following in order to build our own future. And I think that's kind of everybody's responsibility, is to say, okay, we have a chance to build a really better future, really cool services, really cool products, and well, some of you can be really rich, or we just all be happy. But there's all this inspiration, and I think we can follow it. And that's kind of the closing thing for those people who look up, where inspiration maybe comes from and where it leads to. All right, so I think in closing, I think we are riding a real kind of dangerous or opportunistic or a real beautiful ride into the future, but it's a very thin line, riding on a razor blade, whether we go in left and we have all this abundance, everything is available, or we go right and we end up in Skynet and Terminator, and it's up to you to make that decision. All right.
Any questions?
Hi, I'm Alex, and it's not a question, it's, I'd rather say it's an observation. At the beginning you said that you consider nowadays like an end of app era. And after that you showed us all those tiny sensors that are emerging now. But all those sensors generate vast amounts of data. And time goes, the more data, and we have to compute all the data to make to know something from that. And I guess the only known frontier of the only way to compute all this data maybe is quantum computing, and those projects that NASA with Google has. And after they succeed, and I hope they will succeed in this field, I guess this would be a beginning of the app era, because we will have an ability to process all these data and to make different things with all these data. So I not agree that we are in the end of this era. We're just near the beginning.
Yes, I try to, maybe I can kind of rephrase a little bit more and say, you're absolutely right, I see the same thing, it's just the beginning, but I think you just have to look up and say, well, we are not just building an app, and oh, this is an app, this is a game, and this can do this. I think it still is sort of, right now, the mobile phone will be sort of the remote control to our lives. It will have access to the quantum computing things, but it will be much more complex to build these things. So you have sensors, you have big data, you need huge cloud services which make it then meaningful, so that with all this super data, whatever, thousands of data points, just say, you know what, break us in 5 minutes. That's the information. There's 15 other things which are maybe computed, but then whatever is the meaningful part, and that, I agree, can be through, let's say, the mobile phone as, and the app is maybe one window to that. It will be, but also around you. And there, I mean, how do you make, you know, we had some lady here with a Google Glass. Obviously, the display is much smaller. It's a whole different thing how this interacts. So I think the, you know, small programs, applications, of course, will still be used to display something, but it might not be just, you know, let's have another app, or let's say, I'm just against pushing, using all your you know, intelligence to say, oh, let's make another weather app, right? I think there's more things we can do with that, and it's very hard as a standalone app to break through a million other apps. But I agree.
But just imagine if quantum computing is just a service like Amazon hosting, yes. And you have all the data from the sensor, you have the service, and the app is a really tiny program that needs only an idea what parts of information should be combined to make something. So it's still an app, a simple one.
Well, okay, there's a video, I don't know where I found it. It's actually the same developer who developed you know, sensing underwear for Durex from Australia. It just slips my mind the name. But she has a jacket on and she's riding a bike, and it just vibrates where she's going, left or right? So right now we have an app and you have Google Maps and say, oh, I'm going here and here and here. I think that will, you know, in some instances go away. So you have intelligent clothes, and the app is maybe doesn't have a display, if you will. It just vibrates. So that's what I'm trying to say. Maybe that's not only that device, and I don't know, 400 something by 600, but it's, you know, somewhere in this or in that, or we have other ways how we move around.
Sure. Thanks.
Any other questions?
All right. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much.